You're listening to Hashtag Impact, a podcast about stuff that matters, where we track down the most inspiring changemakers dedicated to making a positive difference in the world. I am Regina Larco, your host, and it is my privilege to team up with our sponsor, The Impact Competition, to bring you this episode. Today is all about seeing the big impact one idea can turn into. You will hear 3 voices that all played their part in filling that first idea of the impact competition with life, action, and impact. Find more information about the impact competition at impactcompetition.org. Let's begin. Today, I am sitting down with Lance Breitstein, a graduate of Indiana University's Kelley School of Business, who spent over a decade as one of the best short-term equity traders on Wall Street. At 32, he retired to start the Impact Competition. The Impact Competition funds case competitions which challenge students to find solutions for a different local nonprofit each year. And then students actually implement the solutions using the Impact Competition's seed money. They run this program currently, for example, at Indiana University, University of Maryland, University of Chicago, and many more to come. And essentially, they are turning students into future donors, volunteers, and philanthropists while helping local nonprofits in the process. Welcome to Hashtag Impact Podcast, Lance.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And it's great to be here. I love the work you've been doing and a lot of your past episodes.
You know, of course, I was looking into what you did before you went into philanthropy, yeah? And now, I have to absolutely admit, the world of trading and Wall Street is one that is so foreign to me, I was a little bit overwhelmed when I wanted to get to know Lance a bit, even before we talked, right? So I was like, yeah, so... Well, who is this Lance? Let me look into him. And there were so many interviews with you where you talked about your experience in this trading world and the things you've learned. You shared about mindset, how much you share about how to face adversity and what you learned through that. And it was so relatable. It was so relatable, all you shared there. And then I also thought, well, how does this now, what you learned during your career on Wall Street, now, how do you bring that into the work you do today?
I think part of the appeal of this story and kind of the example I hope to set for others, particularly the students we work with, is there's many ways to do good in the world. And something I often say is you can do good via money and donating. You can do good via time and maybe volunteering and helping out, and also by sharing wisdom. And so I try to do as much of that for others as I can. And so what's so cool about trading is it's almost like this microcosm for life. To really compete as a trader, you need to be more informed. You need to be able to process information faster and more accurately. And so much of getting good is being very analytical, very, very driven, and making these decisions. And you need to really push yourself and face adversity and face setbacks. And I think a lot of this translates over to the nonprofit world, and especially starting up a nonprofit startup. And even some of the adversity, just prospecting schools and adding to this, when we started out, we only started at my alma mater, Indiana University. And you can imagine that when we start to prospect other schools where I have less traction, you deal with a lot of rejection. And you learn, though, to trust in the process. And you learn to just keep your eyes on that end goal and take a step each day. And slowly but surely, the traction builds. And it's been this wonderful thing where I've been able to parlay that experience into doing just something that's really, really great for the world. And it's this model where even if you go into something as capitalistic as Wall Street, or whether you work for a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon or a marketing firm, a lawyer, whatever. There's ways to give back, and you just need to be a little creative and have the inspiration and the care to do so. And really, at the impact competition, that's our objective, right? To reach these students in some of their most impressionable years and open their eyes and let them experience this wonderful world of giving back and how great that feels. And without being prescriptive or overbearing, we give them this experience and we let them interpret and make of it what they wish. And so maybe these students will go on to volunteer for years to come, which we've seen with our past students. Maybe some of these students will go down my path. There's one student who graduated after participating in a competition, became an investment banker, and already at the age of 22 or 23, he's committed to giving back a portion of his salary each year to charity. So we love what this can do for the future students, and it's been a great transition into this field.
Mm-hmm. How was it for you as a student? Were you then exposed to this world at all? I assume not, right?
Yeah, and so absolutely not, because I think the world has changed so much in the decade plus since I was at school. And obviously there was volunteering opportunities, and there wasn't nothing, but it was nothing like the world today. Students are just so much more socially minded. And to tell you a funny story of just how much the world has changed, me being the Wall Street capitalist, our case competitions, we offer a cash prize. And from my point of view, I assumed, these students, we're gonna attract so much attention. It's gonna be such great marketing by offering this cash prize. It's gonna be incredible. And we started collecting data at the end of each competition through these surveys. And much to my surprise, but maybe not to many others, the cash prize was the weakest reason for why any of these students participated in the competition. Far, far above that was that these students were passionate about the social issues that we're addressing. These students were hungry for experiential learning and making a difference in their community. And these students just genuinely care about making the world a brighter, better place. And so while I was not exposed to it, it's been such a pleasant surprise to see this new generation is just so much better than how I used to be.
And that actually brings me to one of your collaborators and one of the stakeholders that have been involved in this wonderful initiative. And that is Shauna Meyer-Niederman. She is the Associate Director at the Kelley Institute for Social Impact at Indiana University. And she said about working with the impact competition, she said, it is a highlight of my job because I get to see students empowered to be thoughtful, confident, and smart partner agencies and able to actually implement change. I've been an undervalued student and I've been an under-resourced nonprofit. The impact competition really brings out the best of the best. How does that make you feel? Hear that? And I'm sure she would say it even more beautifully. And we're going to hear her voice on the podcast as well, sharing her experience, being part of this. Yeah, but I mean, this was just an idea you had, right? Dreaming it up in 2018, right?
Yeah, and I love hearing that. And some of the feedback's so incredible. And so what happened is in 2018, I was at a point where I wanted to do something more than just live in my little computer world of numbers and tickers on my screen. And I wanted to think, what is the most effective way I can give back, right? Without being a super genius, without being some super rich billionaire, how can I as an individual give back? And I was reading some like the Bill Gates letters and different books on philanthropy. And the conclusion I came to was essentially being cause agnostic. It's not so much to me about what cause is relevant to you. Everybody has stuff that's important to them. But the question is, how can we get each individual giving back in some way and just taking action and being inspired to create change? And so I came up with this idea of the impact competition. And so to break it down for the audience, what it is we partner with universities like my alma mater, Indiana University. And each year we host this competition. We choose the most topical, local, actionable social issue for that time, right? So during COVID, obviously a lot of people were struggling with mental health issues. So we partnered with the National Alliance for Mental Illness. During the times of the BLM issues and kind of increasing sensitivities there, we partnered with a group that took care of and addresses just community arbitration and mediation called CJAM. So we're trying to find issues that are topical and relevant to these students. And what's so unique about us is if you ask a student to solve climate change in a couple weeks, it's going to be impossible. But we're asking the more localized version, which is, can we get this lake cleaned up? Or not, can we solve gun violence as a nation? But one thing we're asking this year for the students at University of Chicago, which obviously Chicago is known for some of its gun violence, is how can we make the local Hyde Park neighborhood safer for the students? And so we're taking these big issues, we're breaking it down to bite-sized pieces, and we're empowering students to learn about them and make a real difference in their community. So the winning solution, or even many of the solutions we've seen, end up getting implemented alongside the nonprofit. And we provide the prize money, we provide the seed money to get them started. And this has led to just this wonderful experiential learning where the students are able to make of this experience and walk away with it that, wow, like, I actually can make a difference. Even though people say the world is the outlook is dour and things are worse off than it is, they're seeing that no, it's not, because the future's bright, because I can change this. And we've had these wonderful success stories. Actually, the first competition we ever hosted was at Indiana with Habitat for Humanity, which addresses homelessness in the community. And the winning solution was this concept for a tiny home container. And so this tiny home, if I'm remembering the details correctly, I believe it was 1/3 the cost of a traditional Habitat for Humanity home build. So in theory, you can house many more people that way. And while it got delayed to by COVID, a couple months ago, this solution from 2018 finally came to fruition. And there was a dedication ceremony as this tiny home, thanks to this competition, became a reality and was dedicated to this wonderful person, Charlie Lynn, who had been dealing with homelessness throughout their whole life. For the first time in their life, Charlie Lynn now has a safe, steady place to call their home. And I would like the audience to think about how do those consequences ripple through the future and the world, right? So how will that change Charlie Lynn's life? How will that change this local Habitat for Humanity chapter's just ability to complete their mission? And we still have students that volunteer for Habitat now. So what if those students become lifelong volunteers? This one competition just has so many ways of tying together this community. And what we even saw is there were judges on the panel for this competition that were so inspired. Some of the second and third place ideas, they were writing checks out of their pocket to make sure all of this got funded, because it really did bring this community together to tackle some of the homelessness issues.
We'll hear more from Lance in a bit. Lance might have been the one that dreamed up the idea for the impact competition, but he quickly found collaborators that, together with him, brought it all to life. In a second, you get to eavesdrop on my conversation with two women who were part of the very first round of the impact competition. We'll go back to those early days, and we'll get into all the details with Shauna Meyer-Niederman, Associate Director at the Kelley Institute for Social Impact at Indiana University, who saw the project through from the university's side and facilitated the competition on campus. You'll hear Shauna's voice just after we hear from Wendy Goodlett. Wendy is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County. Wendy tells us more about the innovative solution that the winning students team came up with. A solution that helps Habitat to realize their vision of a world where everyone has a decent place to live.
The challenge to the students was help Habitat come up with a new, innovative way of building a home for someone, building a shelter. And we left it fairly open-ended. And we had a lot of great ideas, but the one that really stood out the most to us was to use a shipping container, something that has been used once to move product, and take that shipping container and turn it into a home for someone. This is happening in many places. In fact, there are a couple of Habitat affiliates that have used a shipping container before, but it's the first one in Indiana, and the community was excited about this opportunity to see what it would look like. But we thought it was a great idea. And there was no requirement by Lance that Habitat implement this idea. But I think because I had been involved with him from the very beginning, I knew it was really important that the students get to see their idea come to life. So implementing it was critically important to me because I wanted them to have that value of seeing their idea become a reality. And I just thought it was a great idea as well. And certainly because of the low cost involved, it was not a huge risk to Habitat to try it. So the competition happened in 2019, spring of 2019, and we began sourcing a shipping container at that time. And it arrived, I want to say, early 2020 that we received the container, and then the world shut down, and we stopped all construction, and we were working primarily from home. But we had many, many families in our program who were actively, in process of working toward their future home. And the shipping container actually provided a really nice segue back into construction again, because it was a small container. We could have just a few people working on it. So we invited out our midweek crew, those people who help us get the work done that we need to get done, help us work with volunteers. But we did it just with the midweek crew, and kind of took it slowly, but it has been, it's been a great learning experience, and it's in a beautiful location. Charlie Lynn's house sits in, I think, one of the prettiest lots in Bloomington. And they, for the first time in their life, will have a safe place to live that's theirs. It will be theirs to own for the rest of their life.
Well, I just need a moment to let that sink in. I mean, how unreal feels that to you, even though you see it come to life, right? I mean, that's your impact. That's what you did. That's what your students did, Shauna, right? That's what came of an idea that Lance was dreaming up, and then that other people really invested in with believing in it and giving it a shot, especially when you do something for the first time. I can imagine there would be a lot of pushback as well from doubters and saying okay, what's that? Is that even going to work? How does that make you feel, Shauna, that it now actually, it's now you repeating it and redoing it, and it's established now.
Yeah. And, so my role in this whole kind of, it's a big team. It's a big team. And so I would be the host, or we call it the implementer, would be our kind of internal world. But with each case competition, that we host and we work on, and especially this one that we did with Habitat, there is a large amount of ideas that get submitted. And so for this first year, there were 15 teams that had ideas. And then there's a very long process that goes through to whittle them down to the top 3. And so Wendy and her team actually were there, to hear those top 3 ideas. And so those, 14, 15 went down to 3. And those 3 ideas, they were very different. But they all required research. They all required to listen to the partner. They all required innovative ideas. And that's what got them there. And so what's really neat is that our students get client work. They get empowered to research and think. And, they were able to really go, all right, what can actually be done? And we have partners like Habitat that say, you know what? Let's do this, let's try this. And our students are then challenged to continue to work with a partner and to help get that done, because it's not just okay, cool, see you later, bye. And for everyone that gets to do it, I know that it's really, really impactful, because it's that ripple effect. It's that I realize I get to actually do something. And we're getting ready to release and do our 5th year. And so each year we've been able to find a partner that's working on a specific social issue. And they varied, and every community has different relevant social issues that are, happening. And we've been able to work with a variety of different partners, and each year is different, right? Like our partner last year was the Chamber of Commerce. They didn't need a shipping container home, right? Like that's not something that they could do, but we were able to get a whole nother batch of students, a whole nother batch of ideas, and then really be able to work and get those things done. So we're implementing that one right now, but we've implemented, which I think this year, being able to see and go to the dedication for Charlie, and to walk through the tiny home. And, we've got pictures of the floor plan. And Wendy, did the students find the floor plans?
They worked with a local architect. Yes.
Yeah. And because of the money that they received from the impact competition to implement, that those are expenses that Habitat didn't have to have in addition to, right? And that's part of what makes this so relevant and important, is that our nonprofits are working extremely hard to do their every day. And so to then say, hey, here's some good ideas, you should do them. It's kind of rude, it's kind of rude, because they know what they're doing and they're working really hard. So to be able to say, we have some help for you and we're going to help you do it, just gives them wings, and I think that's a part that is really, really important to this, because what our partners are doing in the communities is essential. And our students, I think, also need to see, hey, like this is how hard work happens. And this is business, everything that they're doing. And I think it gives them a good perspective as well, into understanding how the nonprofit business world works, because nonprofits are businesses, right? And it's important for them to see that. So I think it's a great way to just kind of really get them in the weeds, deep in it, I think is the best way to put it. And really helping our partners to excel.
And actually, just before we started recording, I heard that you, Wendy, actually heard about this impact competition when maybe it didn't even have a proper name yet, when it was just an idea that Lance Breitstein dreamed up in a bar, as I found out just now. Now we're all laying it out.
Yes.
Wendy, how did that? So you must have been one of the maybe first people that actually then heard him talk about this, right? When it was just an idea.
I believe so, yes. So when I worked at the Kelly School, I was in Major Gifts, so I was fundraising for the Kelly School. And I had an alum who said to me, there's somebody who you have to meet the next time you go to Chicago. And it was Lance. And so it was the first time I'd met him, and we were just getting to know each other. And we met at a bar at the end of the workday. And, I asked him what he was passionate about outside of work. And he started kind of dreaming about this idea. And what he said to me has stayed with me the entire time. And that was that he believed it really only takes one great idea to change the world. And he wanted to find a way to inspire students to believe that that was true and use their great ideas. He views young people, college students, as pivotal to our future, and that we need to find ways to motivate them to utilize those big ideas. So that was the beginning iteration of what became the Impact Competition.
Mm. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed. Plant a little happiness. Let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed. Shauna, I feel that and you're gonna tell our listeners now where I even got this beautiful quote, that this relates actually very much to your work as the Associate Director at the Kelley Institute for Social Impact at Indiana University. Right?
I love that transition. That was amazing. Yeah. So that's the Highwomen singing Crowded Table. And I love when music and lyrics can tell you what's happening on the inside of you, when you can hear somebody else and you go, yeah, that is how I feel. I appreciate you sharing your gift. And Crowded Table is a beautiful song about having a spot at the table for everyone, and how that verse and the lyrics that you shared are all about, planting seeds. And if you want the garden, you have to put a little work into it. But together we can make a garden, we can make it grow. And I feel like that's the privilege I get to do at my work, is that I get to help students realize their potential and realize, well, if you want to make change, you can't just talk about it. If you want to make change, you have to do something about it.
And that's why I have really loved putting our episodes and our stories now for the season 5 under the SDG umbrella, to look at all these stories from that perspective as well. And Wendy, you shared something really lovely beforehand. What I want our listeners to know is where you said, I truly believe that a decision, idea, or action that impacts one person is worthwhile. One person, and has ripple effects that we may not be able to measure. Each one of those impacts counts towards the global goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. Right? Can you tell me more about that and how you implement that in your day-to-day work?
I love that.
Thank you. I do believe it, and in our work here in Monroe County, one of the questions that I get asked, or one of the things that is a challenge that people have with our mission, is they say, well, you're only serving X number of families. And it's...
I don't like that already.
We're sighing and shaking our heads.
No.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating because it's so narrow-minded to think that we have to count every single person and type of impact. And one of the stories that I share is we have an elementary school in Bloomington that struggles year after year with test scores. And I don't love the testing that happens among our children, but I understand the need for it. And the reason that school is challenged with that is because their kids change over every year. many of them are there for a year or less before they have to move on. That's because their family is looking for the next affordable place to live, or maybe a place that has a little less mold or a little better insulation. And so they are not able to stay through the entire time in that elementary school. And so whatever they learn that year, they take somewhere else. And so they have a new batch of kids that comes in that are at the age that need to be tested, and they've not been prepared, and they've not had the care and consideration of the teachers in that school to help them. And it impacts the entire school, because you have teachers who are constantly trying to help kids catch up. And so it impacts the other children in that classroom. And so by bringing some stability to that school, we built a neighborhood near the school. And so the children that live in our Trailview neighborhood go to Fairview Elementary School and stay for their entire tenure of elementary school. It has brought great stability to that school. And that's one of the things that the principal talked about, was just how impactful that has been for that neighborhood to be there and to have that continuity from year to year, for the students themselves, for the teachers who are working with the students, for the other students that are in the classroom. And so that's just one example of how providing housing stability to one family impacts the other children in that school. And then you multiply that by the 10 families that we're helping a year, and you start to see how much greater the impact can be. I think it also, families who have housing stability are then able to improve in the way that they perform at work, because they're not worried about where they're going to live or where their kids are going to go to school. They know that they're going to go home at the end of the day, and they're going to be able to help their children study, and they're going to get a good night. The parent is going to get a good night's sleep, and they're going to go to work the next day prepared for the day. And so the employers benefit from that as well. And just the community as a whole, I really do think that we are only as great as, the people that we help, the most vulnerable in our community that we help. And so if we want to be the best versions of ourselves as a community, we have to help others who do not have the same advantages that we have.
And this actually brings me back to my conversation with Lance and something I found him sharing on Twitter. But I love to go to a tweet from you, actually. Look, Lance, I was digging out everything I could. I was like stalking you left and right. And
no stone was left uncovered.
And there was this one I particularly loved. I had to actually take a screenshot of this. Maybe we can share this tweet with our listeners as well in the show notes, where you say, and this tweet is from July 22nd. 2022. Do you remember what you tweeted that day, Lance?
I do not, but I'm hoping it's something good.
And yeah, there you tweet, "Why not me?" 3 powerful words. My mindset has always been, if anyone else out there can do it, then why not me? Goes for trading and philanthropy. Everyone is waiting for people smarter or wealthier or with more time to solve the world's issues. Well, they are too. Why not you?
Yep, I love it. I stand by that quote. Thank God that was such a good one. It's, man, even still, that was just hearing you read that. It's so important, and it's so true. And so trading, becoming a stock trader, especially in the style that I was doing, the failure rate is immense. Probably 99% of people fail. And those that even work for some of the best firms, the failure rate is still probably 70, 80%. And the odds are always stacked against you. But nevertheless, there are people out there that are doing it and are succeeding. And you need to have the mindset that if someone out there can do it, then why can't that person be me, right? We're all human. They have a brain and emotions and a heart just like me. So if they found some path to do this, then I can do it. And what's so nice is I'm not trying to be the next Bill Gates kind of, removing polio or trying to greatly reduce malaria. I can't necessarily be the Bill Gates, but the fact that he can be Bill Gates, that lights the path for me to do that. And I think what I've learned as I've read about this, like one great book that really stuck with me and kind of really accelerated my path on this is the book, The Life You Can Save. And it talks about all these psychological biases that people have, right? If there was a child that needed your help right next to you, if they give the thought experiment, if a child was drowning and you needed to jump into a dirty, lake, would you do so and ruin your clothes to save that child's life if it costs your outfit $200? And you would say, of course, what kind of monster wouldn't? Yet, nevertheless, we're able to save a life with a couple $100 by especially malaria is cheap and highly cost effective to prevent deaths. And there's all these biases because the child in India, it's intangible to me. I can't see it. I don't know this child. It's so far away and far removed to my experience of my life. And a lot of these biases you need to get around, right? And again, I pick on climate change just because if you read about it, it's quite overwhelming. You really need so many different stakeholders to be doing so much. And when you read the Bill Gates book or many others, you say, holy crap. I don't know if I can say that, but holy crap. And you really can be overwhelmed. And then it's the opposite of what we need. We need people to be inspired, and we need people to take that first step, whatever that might be. For some people, that might mean donating, right? And if you ask someone to donate, if I were to go up to some business person here in New York, where I'm currently at, and I would say, are you willing to donate $5,000 to save whatever amount of lives? It would be these psychological factors that you act from this position of scarcity and you say, oh no, what about my means in supporting myself? And so I realized that every human experiences that. Every audience listener is thinking, if I were to ask them, why don't you donate 10% of your salary? You think, oh no, because that's my shelter and my resources, my support. And what you really need to do is help people recognize that everybody feels that way. From people far richer, people far poorer, people with much more time, much less time. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to let the richer person with more time, more resources, more wisdom, they're going to clean up the whole mess. But we can't rely on that person because that person is thinking the same thing too. And the truth is, every single person, every single listener has some ability to give back. It might not be money, but maybe you have a little time. And even if you don't have time, you do have some wisdom you can share. And I think that's really ultimately what the impact competition does, is it creates our motto is we compound positive change, because you get everyone doing their individual part. And that is how we can solve incredible things. Who's to say one day that the person that creates the more efficient battery or the carbon capture solution won't come from an impact competition? Who is to say that we won't be inspiring the next Wall Street success story who then goes and gives $1 billion back to society? And I'm not here to judge any career, right? People need to follow their passions. People need to do what drives them, and people need to find the way of giving back that drives them and speaks to them as well. And I think the most important thing to recognize is I don't do this because I'm some selfless person. I enjoy the intellectual challenge, but more than that, I think you need people to do this. And even bigger than all those reasons, you find happiness from it. And as a big fan of Buddhist philosophy, I think a lot of the modern research is proving it true that once you get someone to give back, once you get someone to volunteer, people end up finding fulfillment, finding happiness, and it's lasting. Unlike material possessions or many other things, this level of happiness lasts And you just need to get people on that path to experience it for themselves.
It's a lovely selfish thing to do for yourself, to do something good for others, and the way it will make you feel. Yeah, and that actually brings me to what you did there for that very first inaugural impact competition, case competition at Indiana University. Because the first is always special, right? I think the very first one, all the ones that follow are, of course, super special as well. But there's a certain magic, I think, around the first one. And that's why, from your perspective, as the one who initiated and founded the impact competition, now when you've seen it come to life and looking at the impact that one has made, what stands out to you as something that you will want to see in future competitions as well, kind of like as a best case, but also when it comes to you personally as a motivating driver to keep growing and scaling where you want to take this?
So I think we're fortunate now with most stuff being real classroom experience rather than virtual, because the number one driver behind all this is the emotions. When you are a part of these competitions and you see the students smiling ear to ear, you see these students, some of the presentations these students have given could be by equivalent to some of the best presentations any top consulting group in the world would give. The level of detail, the passion, just the polish they've put on these are so amazing. And you see these executives and these board members from these nonprofits listening to every single word that these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds are saying. And there's nothing quite like that. And we've captured some of these moments on video, and the power of these moments are everything. We were discussing happiness and that fulfillment. And a lot of the time, what drives that is just social interaction and relationships. And that's what we're building in a community. We are bringing the citizens of the community. We're bringing the nonprofit, the students, the alumni. In a lot of these communities, the university is kind of the linchpin of these communities. It's just such a huge presence. And to bring everyone together is just such a powerful thing. So I think that's the driving force ahead. And if you can get those moments happening, that's when it all becomes magic. That's when any administrator from that university sees, wow, we are really onto something. This is going to change the world. And I truly believe that, right? It sounds like a crazy statement, but like I said, this stuff does compound. And when you're in those moments, it's so huge. And so going forward, really, really what my goal is to bring this experience to all the universities, and especially universities and communities that need it. We're trying to bring this ideally one day to the all-female universities, to the historically Black colleges and universities. We want to bring this to all these different areas so that they can better transform the future of their world. And it's going to make a big difference. It really will. Like I always dream of the thought, if this idea rolls out across the country or the world, what impact does that have, not in 3 years or in 5 years, but what happens in 20, 30, 50 years? That will be tens of thousands of students, maybe hundreds of thousands by then, that have experienced this. It will have rippled to so many different lives. Millions of lives will be touched by those students, by those nonprofits, by those community members. And it will be, it will have the power to change the world. And it all started from one little kernel of truth that, hey, I think this is a good idea, and I'm going to start it at this one school. And it was just me saying, how can I do my best little part? And I like to hope it inspires other people to do their best little part.
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely will. I'm certain of that. And that actually brings me to our beautiful quickfire round. Are you ready for it?
I am ready for it.
Making an impact means?
Making an impact means, I think it means doing your best for the community, and it's going to be different. And I don't think it's about a single cause. I don't think it's about something. For some people, it might mean art. It might mean poetry. It might mean making a better ethical business. It might mean being a lawyer for people that otherwise can't defend themselves. It might mean just being a better friend or a better parent. And I think each person needs to find their little part that resonates.
Mm-hmm. Who inspires you in the way they are making a difference in the world?
So if I had to pick one person, just because it's kind of been the model that I've been following, there is someone named John Arnold, and he used to be a natural gas trader. And this guy was immensely successful, multi-billionaire. And at a very young age, I think he was in his 30s as well, he said, I've had all the success I could have dreamed of. I want to make an even bigger impact. And now he started the John Arnold Foundation, and he is involved across the board in shaping public policy. He's involved in jail reform. He's involved in all these issues that most people would not have the power to shape. And I think it's such a beautiful thing because he's someone that's made this immense amount of money, and he's using it for good. And he's using it rationally and effectively for just the benefit of the people, to parlay kind of just the good fortune he's had and help everyone live a better life. And that's been very, while I'm probably not even a fraction of his success, it's been very inspiring to see.
Mm. And what could everyone do right now to make the world a better place?
So I'll go back to what I said before. Whether it's time, money, or wisdom, there is some way. And if you say, no, there's no way I can give back, I'm calling you out on it right now. You're just taking the cop-out excuse. Or you're not thinking hard enough, or you're not thinking smart enough. Every single person, there's not a single person, I don't care what your life situation is. Nobody's life is easy. Everyone has their own struggles. Don't get me wrong, but everyone also has their own opportunities, and there is some way for you to do it. And even if you're an audience member listening, if you feel strongly about your alma mater, if you're connected to your university, or if you work for a university, help us bring the impact competition to your school. Help us bring this to your community so you can shape a safer, healthier, more socially minded world around you. There are actions we can all do.
Yeah, let's do that. Yes, listeners, did you hear that? Oh, thank you so much for this, Lance. I'm feeling the energy across the globe, even the thousands and thousands of kilometers that are between us in this moment. I feel your passion through your words and your voice, and thank you for that. It will, just this today will make an impact on you out there listening. Yes, you listener. Yes.
Thank you for being such a wonderful vehicle and medium for people to get the word out and to spread it across every corner of the world. And I'll do my part to make sure this gets out there as well. So thank you.
If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed. Do you feel it too? The fire to make your own impact, to look inside and ask yourself which talents you could share with the world that can make a positive difference. These conversations that you just got to hear, they have been such a highlight for me and such an inspiration. A big thanks to Wendy, Shauna, and Lance for making the time to share their voices. And as you're listening now, I encourage you all to start connecting with them directly. I will make sure to share their sites and channels in this episode's show notes. A big thanks one more time to the Impact Competition for supporting our podcast. And I speak for all of us here at #Impact. We are so very excited to see where you will take your passion, your drive, and your impact next. Thank you all for listening today. I talk to you soon. Bye.